what strategies, if any, do you have for narrowing the significant wealth gap in the district? How would you, as an at-large council member, propose to help the Georgia Avenue community provide a mix of housing for residents at all income levels? And how would you support long-term needs like employment and job training?
Well, again, I think we've been talking about a lot of the things. The schools need to obviously provide our youth with a good start in terms of the basics. They should have, technical training available to them, apprenticeship programs, those that want a job or a college preparatory program. I think a lot of the charters are providing some great opportunities in that regard. So we need to provide the educational background, and then we need to hire our youth, get them in through internships, hire DC residents first. If someone's come from UDC or one of our local community colleges, make sure that they get the first look for a job. The city can encourage that. They can't do everything, but they can certainly encourage employers, and through any sort of city hiring, they can enforce those kinds of rules.
Okay. All right. I like the way the question is framed, because it really talks about the two things that we need to do to reduce poverty. You need to increase income, and you need to reduce expenses for folks who are at the lower end of the economic bracket. So what does that mean? It means increasing income means training folks for jobs that will provide a living wage. Our city does a terrible, terrible job of providing the leadership and the vision for a focused job creation effort. We don't focus on specific sectors of the economy that are the most lucrative for folks. We just do it piecemeal. We don't provide training in any kind of a focused way. And in terms of housing, it's not a high enough priority. When times are tough, we raid the Housing Production Trust Fund rather than making sure it's fully funded or expanded. This is the way that we reduce the income inequalities.
The first thing we have to do is we have to fund the Housing Production Trust Fund. The Housing Production Trust Fund should be receiving about $18 million on an annual basis. You take that $18 million and you can leverage $200 million in housing. Under the plan that I told you about earlier, the plan called for 55,000 housing units. Of that 55,000 affordable housing units, 19,000 were supposed to be apartments. This was during the time, once again, 1999 to 2006. Then we got another administration that totally abandoned that plan. Had all the money in the bank, the $1.6 billion, spent $700 million and went in a totally different direction. That's the reason why the citizens brought me back last year, because that's the plan that I want to continue implementing. In addition to that, we have to train to the jobs. Our 6 priority projects right now will create 16,000 temporary jobs, 19,000 permanent jobs. But we don't know the profile of our unemployed. Department of Employment Services has to get this act together. We have to overlap and get our people trained and hired. We should take our training dollars, put them in our community college, and our community college comes up with the training programs. And since our dollars, DC tax dollars, are in the projects, we can make the connection. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about having the proper vision and the proper plan, executing it, and moving forward.
Strategies for narrowing the significant wealth gap in DC. First thing, we need to know what the wealth gap is. The wealth gap in the Ward 3 and Ward 2, median income is $425,000 a year. On this side of the town, Ward 1 and 7 and 8, the median income is $60,000. The higher education rate of Caucasian Americans and others is 80%, and African Americans and others is only 20%. That creates a gap. The educational system. I was a part of UDC community development of the UDC Community College, that we might be able to create workforce development in this city, and that we might stop taking corporate money. That'll also help with the gap in this city too. Also help with the gap in being able to elect persons who are qualified and not take strip club money and not take corporate money, because it's a pay to play. Whoever pays you, that's who you play with.
Well, I believe that the policies of the government should, again,
support the middle class in order to close that gap between those that are extremely rich and those who are in poverty. And poverty is growing in D.C. right now, and that's one of the things that we need to enact policies that will empower people to move upward mobily. What am I saying there? Upward. And they also need to, we need to look at affordable housing as not only a restoration of the funding, which Councilmember Orange mentioned, but also to counteract some of the current market forces to even increase that fund. And to do that, I would look at alternative funding sources, such as a dedication of a percentage of the property tax when property taxes have increased, or when the value of the property has increased. I think it's also important to move from renting to ownership so that you get a buy-in from the resident. And so I would also provide incentives for ownership, home ownership in the district. And I'm getting a tap on the shoulder.
Thank you. So in order to close the income gap, we have to take seriously the fact that many of the residents of the District of Columbia today who are having a hard time getting into the workforce are having a hard time because we fundamentally failed them through our K-12 education system. We have an adult illiteracy rate in the city at about 30 to 35%. Right? This is an indication that we failed people through the time that they were in school, and it's going to be extremely hard in the 21st century in the District of Columbia to be competitive in the workforce if you cannot read. And so the first step we've got to do is we've got to make sure that everyone in our school system, whether they're DCPS or charters, get the kind of education that propels them out of high school prepared to either go to college or directly into a career. We've got to hold ourselves accountable to make sure our summer youth employment program actually gets young people ready to go into the workforce, that our community college builds the mid-skills people need to go directly into careers. And then we've got to transform Department of Employment Services, which does not do its job. We're pouring in millions of dollars, and we're not getting residents to work. We have lots of people going through training programs who come out the other end, and they're still not employed, and many of which are still not employable. So we've got to make better investments and hold people accountable to training district residents.
I've already mentioned several of the things that I think would reduce the wealth gap. You said 400,000 medium income in Ward 2. Jack Evans wants to cut taxes from the top down by 0.5% for everybody. I say we should couple us with the federal exemption and deduction rate, and for a married couple, or I guess unmarried, if you're filing together, you will pay taxes on $12,000 less income than you would be today. If you're single, you'd be paying it on $4,000 less income. The same thing with businesses. Businesses are put out of business all the time because they can't afford the rents or because they have to pay too high taxes. Why should a person with a store near Prince George's County have to pay $1.85 a hundred when they're paying $1 a hundred in PG County, or over in Georgetown pay $1.85 per hundred when they're paying 85 cents a hundred across the river in Roslyn? It just isn't fair, and it doesn't work, and it's putting little businesses out of business.